Hey everybody! So in this video I'm going to go over the song lyrics that you had to read and answer questions about for the Week 5 discussion. And if you remember, those lyrics were to the song Comfortably Numb. This song, if you saw at the bottom of the lyrics, it was written by David Gilmour and Roger Waters. And actually the lyrics are Roger Waters. David Gilmour wrote the music for it. And, they are two of the members of the band Pink Floyd. Very, very famous, popular rock band of the 70s into the 80s, and then it all fell apart. But this is one of their most famous songs. And it's interesting because you hear two voices in this song. And that's not anything groundbreaking, but it makes this particular song a heck of a lot more interesting. So, if you have never listened to the song, give it a listen. It's, especially after having gone over the lyrics, in the discussion and here in this video, hearing it put to music gives it a whole new dimension. And the music is pretty spectacular. It's got one of the all-time greatest guitar solos in it, but just the whole thing is very, it's just very cool how the music emphasizes the lyrics, especially considering those two different voices that we hear. Alright, so first thing is we're going to go through the lyrics, sort of line by line or thought by thought, and then we'll discuss, any elements of poetry that we see along the way, and then I will sort of discuss what the whole song is about, because there are several, probably limitless interpretations of these lyrics. Alright, so, Comfortably Numb. We start off with hello, a question. 3 times. Hello, hello, hello. Is there anybody in there? So you're thinking, okay, is there anybody in there? In the house, in the building, in the car? What type of thing are we wondering about if someone is in it? Just nod if you can hear me. Is there anyone at home? Alright. Just nod if you can hear me. So, if we're wondering if someone is home in a house, we wouldn't say, nod if you can hear me, because we wouldn't be able to see them nod if they're inside the house and we're outside the house wondering if someone's home. The only way that, you could see someone nod is if you're able to see them, right? So, when we're asking that, hello, is there anybody in there? Is there anyone at home? We're talking to a person. Really, like, can you hear me? Is anyone home? Anybody in there? Right? Come on now. I hear you're feeling down. Well, I can ease your pain, get you on your feet again. Alright, so the person who's being spoken to isn't feeling real good, right? And the person who is doing the speaking in this section, the first verse, that speaker is saying, I can ease your pain and get you on your feet again. They're offering some sort of relief to whatever the other person is experiencing. Do we have any way of knowing if it's physical pain, mental pain, emotional pain? Not sure. But whatever it is, I hear you're feeling down. that almost makes it seem like it's more emotional and mental. Um, because if someone was sick, with a physical ailment of some sort, you would be more likely to say, I hear you're not feeling well. Um, so this is open, this is very ambiguous here, what kind of pain the other person is experiencing. But we do know that the speaker is offering some sort of relief for this pain. I can ease your pain, get you on your feet again. Relax. I need some information first. Just the basic facts. Can you show me where it hurts? Can you show me where it hurts? Well, that implies that it is some sort of physical ailment now, right? Can I show you where it hurts? Yeah, it hurts here. It hurts here. Hurts, here. Like, if it was emotional and mental pain, could you really show someone where it hurts? Not really. But maybe the speaker doesn't realize this. So, can you show me where it hurts? They don't even know what kind of pain the other person is dealing with. But yet somehow they know they can offer relief for it. Alright. Then, that whole first verse, spoken by the first voice, I won't say that it's lacking in poetry completely. There's rhyme, there's really interesting phrasing, but it's not like we get a lot of imagery. It's not like we get a lot of similes or metaphors. It's almost very direct. It's, it's very minimal in a way. But then we get the chorus where the second voice comes in. And the second voice is the person who was being spoken to in the first verse. So voice number 1 is speaking to voice number 2. So after voice 1 gets finished in the first verse, voice 2 comes in with the chorus. There is no pain, you are receding. A distant ship's smoke on the horizon. You are only coming through in waves. Your lips move, but I can't hear what you're saying. Alright, let's take those 4 lines. There is no pain. You are receding. So receding is to go back, right? Something's receding. It's going away. Going back. A distant ship's smoke on the horizon. So, out at sea, way off in the horizon, where the ocean meets the skyline, a distant ship's smoke on the horizon. That's how. There is no pain. You are receding. A distant ship's smoke on the horizon. So, voice number 2 is saying that's what voice number 1 looks like to him, or sounds like. That voice number 1 has receded and is like the smoke of a ship off on the horizon. That's a pretty cool metaphor. And we can envision that too. Great imagery, great metaphor. There is no pain, you are receding. But it's not a physical receding because voice number 1 is still right there. But that is how voice number 2 is feeling and what they're experiencing. It's as if voice number 1 is receding and they're like a ship on the horizon. You are only coming through in waves. Your lips move, but I can't hear what you're saying. It gives us more insight into what's happening with person number 2, right? Voice number 2. When I was a child, I had a fever. My hands felt just like 2 balloons. That's a cool simile, right? My hands felt just like 2 balloons. Imagine what that we can, I mean, it's weird, but, you know, we're all familiar with balloons. Imagine if your hands felt like balloons. Now I've got that feeling once again. I can't explain. You would not understand. This is not how I am. I have become comfortably numb. Okay. So whatever voice number 2 is feeling right now, whatever they're experiencing, it's like everything's receding, everything's like ships on the horizon. It reminds them of when they were a child and had a fever. Their hands felt like 2 balloons, and they're trying to explain it, you know, what that feels like, what they're experiencing, but they can't. You know, and then what's interesting is the end of the chorus where he says, "This is not how I am." So it's almost like he's saying, you know, I've had this feeling before when I was a child, and, you know, having this experience right now, but this is not how I am. This is not normal. I have become comfortably numb. So that's not who I am. That's not how I am. This is what I've become. I've become comfortably numb. Right? Numb meaning no feeling. Right? Comfortably numb. I guess that could mean absence of pain. Right? Comfortably numb. You know? But when someone says they're comfortable in that sense, does it mean that everything is good? Or does it just mean there's nothing bad? Is there a difference? You know, can you take all of the bad things away and be truly happy? Or do you take all the bad things away and you're just comfortable? Not sure. But that's what voice number 2 is saying. However he's feeling, everything's receding. Nothing, it's almost like nothing seems real. His hands feel like balloons just like they did when he was a kid and he had a really bad fever. You know, he can't explain it. That's not how he really is. He's become comfortably numb. And then we switch back to the first voice. Okay, just a little pinprick. There'll be no more ah. And if you listen to the song, you can hear the ahs. But you may feel a little sick. So, voice number 2 just got done with this really beautiful, you know, foray into what they're experiencing, and you know how it has brought up those memories of their childhood, and it's all very poetic and, you know, full of imagery and metaphor and simile. And then we come back to voice number 1, and it's just like, okay, just a little pinprick. There'll be no more ah, but you may feel a little sick. So we're back to that very sort of direct, minimal language again. And what does that mean, just a little pinprick? Probably some sort of needle, right? There'll be no more ah, so there'll be no more pain, there'll be no more sickness, illness, whatever it is that voice number 2 is dealing with right now. But you may feel a little sick. Alright, so what kind of an injection might you get that would help ease pain of some sort, but also make you feel a little sick? Can you stand up? I do believe it's working. Good. That'll keep you going through the show. Come on, it's time to go. Oh, okay. So we learn a little bit here from voice number 1. They are giving voice number 2 some sort of injection to help ease whatever pain voice number 2 is experiencing. But that injection, whatever is in it, might make them feel a little sick. But it seems to be working. Voice number 2 is able to stand up, and voice number 1 says, that'll keep you going through the show. Come on, it's time to go. Okay, so voice number 2 is about to put on some type of show and isn't feeling well in whatever sense. And voice number 1 has the thing that'll fix him right up and get him out on stage like he's supposed to be. Interesting. I suppose the show could be life, right? That'll keep you going through the show. That'll get you through the show of life. But it's interesting. And then voice number 2 comes back again. We get a little bit of a repeat of that chorus, but with a little bit of alteration in the second half of it. So, there is no pain, you are receding. A distant ship's smoke on the horizon. You are only coming through in waves. Your lips move, but I can't hear what you're saying. So that part is the same. When I was a child, I caught a fleeting glimpse out of the corner of my eye. So, you know how like when something catches your attention out of the corner of your eye, and you can't really tell what it is, right? It just something over there in your peripheral vision gets your attention, right? I turned to look, but it was gone. I cannot put my finger on it now. The child is grown. The dream is gone. I have become comfortably numb. So we get that wonderful imagery and metaphor again in the first half of the chorus, because it's a repeat of the first chorus. But then this, we still have a memory of childhood, but it's not exactly the same one. We're no longer talking about the fever and hands like balloons. Now we're talking about something else. He's saying when he was a child, he caught a fleeting glimpse out of the corner of his eye. A fleeting glimpse of what? We're not sure yet. Alright? He turned to look, but it was gone. He cannot put his finger on it now, exactly what it was. Because the child is grown. The dream is gone. He's become comfortably numb. So, he grew up, that dream is gone, and he's now comfortably numb. He cannot remember what it was that caught his attention when he was a kid. Why would that be important? Not quite sure. Guess we'll have to ask some more questions and try to figure it out. But first, I love this song because of that contradiction between the parts. The language that's used by voice number 1 versus the language that's used by voice number 2. Those verses and the tone of those being so direct and short and maybe somewhat manipulative in a way. Like voice number 1 pretends like they're there to help, but are they really? Do they really have voice number 2's best interest at heart? Especially if all they're doing is making them well so that they can go perform. Is that really the right thing to do? And then we have voice number 2, who's clearly experiencing something not entirely pleasant. There's some sort of pain happening. And then this feeling that they're having this, what they're experiencing because of the pain and then because of the pinprick. It's almost like voice number 2, the language is the language of whatever remedy was in that injection. So if we want to assume that it's some sort of, pain relief, some sort of painkiller of some sort, then it's like the language used by voice number 2 is the language of that type of drug. That imagery, that metaphor, that remembrance of something, but not a clear and vivid enough memory to name it. You know, things are hazy, if you will. So that's one of the many reasons why I love this song. How we have, not only would it be totally obvious when you listen to the song that you have two different voices, but even without hearing the song, you can look at the, even if I hadn't color coded it in any way, if you look at each section, there's such a distinct difference between each one, you know. And voice number one, that those sections really don't have a whole lot of poetry going on, but voice number two is very steeped in poetry. So I like that about it. Now, so we've looked at the imagery and the metaphors and the similes that are there in the chorus. And so if you're wondering what this song is about, there are several answers to that question. The first is, there actually is sort of a real life experience that the song is based on. And it has to do with Roger Waters, the singer from Pink Floyd. I think it was back in 1977. He had a really bad stomach ache before a show, and was pretty much incapable of performing at that point. And their manager brought in a doctor, and the doctor gave him a shot that pretty much all but knocked him unconscious. He's on record as saying, he performed that entire concert barely able to, he couldn't even raise his hands above his knees. He was numb. His stomach pain was gone, and I guess he had enough mental acuity to still be able to sing, and perform, but he couldn't really move. And he was comfortably numb. It was not a pleasant thing for him, though, and that's why I'd asked that question earlier about, if we're comfortably numb, what does that mean? Sure, if you're comfortable, that means nothing bad is going on, but does that mean you're really happy? Is the absence of bad the same as being happy? And his answer, Waters' answer, would probably be no. Because, yes, he was comfortable, he was no longer in pain, but it was not a very good experience for him. And, not only would it just be weird and frustrating to have to be on stage and perform, 2.5 hours of rock music with really not being able to move very much, but also the crowd couldn't even tell. They were just there for the music. So it kind of makes me think back to the lyrics to Wanted Dead or Alive, how, these fans, they only care about what the musicians produce, not about the musicians themselves. And so you get that kind of feeling when you hear Waters talk about that experience as well. So parts of this song, and he also did, as a child, have a fever. He experienced delirium. So there's, even in the chorus, there's some real life experience there as well. We'll get into the deeper meaning here in a minute. The song lyrics are also part of Pink Floyd's concept album, The Wall, which was also made into a movie. And it's about the lead singer of the band Pink, his name is Pink, who goes on this sort of existential inward journey, and ultimately, due to different factors, has an alter ego sort of come out of him, and he becomes like a fascist dictator. And and it all happens because of how disconnected he feels to everyone around him. And it's this idea that whether you build those metaphorical walls around yourself and simply keep everybody out through your own will, or the wall that you put up is built by drugs, and that keeps the world out. That, there's this break, there's this disconnect between that individual and the world around them, the people around them, and what that does to someone, what it does to their sanity. And so that's another, and it kind of still falls in line with Waters' real life experience to explain the lyrics, but it's a little different because it is part of that concept album and the movie. But I think, again, what's really cool about this song is how you can interpret it in different ways, because it doesn't have to be about a rock singer, getting injected with something just so he can go on stage and perform for the fans and make money for the manager and the producers and everybody. And it doesn't have to be about Pink, from that album and movie. I feel like there's this thing in the chorus, all this talk about his childhood, especially that, I caught a fleeting glimpse out of the corner of my eye. I turned to look, but it was gone. I cannot put my finger on it now. The child is grown. The dream is gone. I have become comfortably numb. And I think you could, it always makes me think anyway, of how that wonder and joy of childhood, that naivete that you just can never get back. Like, once you grow, all of that disappears, and it's almost like, how do you deal with that? Because you can't really live as a productive adult if you don't grow and let go of those childhood things. So it's almost like the demands of adulthood kind of dull us, and we don't have all of that wonder and joy and mystery and excitement of childhood. And, is that because, how do we cope with that? Do we use drugs and alcohol to cope with that disconnect? Do we seek drugs and alcohol to try to get back to that place? And even if you don't seek drugs and alcohol, I think just the simple rules of adulthood, cause that disconnect. But I always just find those lyrics interesting and thinking what he meant by all of the memories from his childhood and how it relates to where he is now. And what that means for the rest of us who aren't musicians and rock stars, and just, how can we relate to this? It doesn't seem like you can, but if you take out those specific details of voice 1, what we get from voice 2, I think, is so open to interpretation and can apply to so many different levels of meaning to each individual. And that's some really cool poetry, if it can do that. So, that is Comfortably Numb. If you have any questions, any comments, include them in the journal. And I can't wait to see what you guys have to say about this one.